47 seconds. I really want you to let that number sink in for just a sec, because that is the exact amount of time, on average, that you and I can actually focus on a screen today before our attention completely shatters and we switch to something else. We are living through what might honestly be the largest uncontrolled experiment in human cognition ever. And the results are, well, they're frankly staggering. Our capacity for sustained focus isn't just changing, it is quite literally eroding in real time. So if you constantly feel like you're endlessly sprinting on a treadmill that's cranked up just a little too high, you are absolutely not alone. You sit down to work and suddenly, poof, it's 5 p.m. Your to-do list is actually longer than when you started, and you're left agonizing over this incredibly frustrating, highly relatable question: where does all our time go? Why does it feel like there simply aren't enough hours in the day to get anything meaningful done?
Well, welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are taking a deep, research-backed dive into the cognitive crisis, why you have no time, and how to get it back. We're going to look at the hard data behind why you feel so incredibly overwhelmed. We'll uncover the invisible environmental traps that are destroying your productivity, and most importantly, I'm going to show you exactly how to regain control of your focus. To keep things moving and perfectly structured, here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll examine the age of time poverty. Second, the shocking data behind our shrinking attention spans. Third, we're unpacking the multitasking inefficiency trap. Fourth, we'll explore the psychology of why we plan poorly. And finally, fifth, actionable steps on how to reclaim your focus. Let's get right into it.
Starting us off with Section 1, the age of time poverty. So, before we even touch any productivity hacks, we've got to validate that everyday stress you're probably feeling right this second. Look, over the last 2 decades, global wealth has generally gone up, right? But that material affluence has absolutely not translated into time affluence. What you're feeling is a very real, measurable phenomenon called time poverty. According to researchers Dr. Laura George and Ashley Willens over at the Wellbeing Research Center, time poverty is that persistent, nagging feeling of having way too many things to do and just not enough time to do them. And what's truly alarming here is the severity of it. In a massive analysis of 2.5 million Americans, subjective feelings of time poverty actually had a stronger negative effect on well-being than being unemployed. It is a massive crisis that gets largely ignored, but it's quietly destroying our psychological and economic well-being.
Moving right along to Section 2, our shrinking attention spans.
So, if we're all so starved for time, where is the time we actually do have going? Well, first things first, we need to dismantle a super popular myth. You've probably heard someone say that humans now have an 8-second attention span, which is supposedly worse than a goldfish. Okay, scratch that, it is completely fabricated. There is zero peer-reviewed science backing that up. But the reality? It's deeply concerning all on its own. According to almost 2 decades of research by Dr. Gloria Mark at UC Irvine, our average attention span on a screen dropped from 2.5 minutes back in 2004 to just 47 seconds today. 47 seconds. That is how long people actually stay focused in a real digital environment before jumping to something else.
And why are we constantly switching gears? Get this. A 2024 survey found that Americans now check their phones an average of 205 times a day. To put that into perspective, that's roughly once every 5 minutes while you're awake. That rate is so astronomically high that no cognitive task can survive uninterrupted. Every single one of those checks is a micro-interruption that just shatters any chance you had at deep, focused work.
And frankly, it gets worse when we look at the workplace. According to Microsoft's 2025 Work Trend Index, knowledge workers face 275 pings and interruptions every single workday. That is a ping from a meeting, a random email, or a quick chat message every 2 minutes during core work hours. Imagine trying to work while someone taps you on the shoulder every 2 minutes. Is it any wonder that 80% of workers say they lack the time or energy to do their job effectively?
Which brings us to Section 3, the multitasking inefficiency trap.
We try to cope with these 275 daily interruptions by multitasking, don't we? But here's the truth. Our brains simply aren't built for it. The fallout from this hyper-distracted environment is massive. According to Asana's Anatomy of Work Index, a staggering 60% of our time is lost to mere coordination, what they accurately call work about work. You know the drill. Communicating about tasks, digging around for information, chasing down status updates. That leaves a measly 40% of your day for the actual, skilled, strategic, or creative work you are hired to do in the first place.
To really grasp why this is so devastating, let's break down the actual anatomy of a distraction. Step 1, the interruption hits. A ping, a buzz, whatever. Step 2, you execute a task switch. And this is not free.
Your prefrontal cortex physically drains glucose and spikes cortisol, your stress hormones, as it abandons one context and desperately tries to load another. And then comes step 3, the recovery. Dr. Gloria Mark's research shows it takes an average of 23 minutes and 15 seconds to fully return to your original task after just one interruption. If you're getting interrupted every few minutes, well, the math is just brutal. There literally aren't enough minutes in the day to recover.
Let's pivot to section 4, why we plan poorly.
Okay, so our environment is clearly working against us, but what about our own brains? Let's look at why we consistently and totally underestimate how long tasks will take, even when we aren't being bombarded with distractions. To understand this, we've got to look at a landmark 1994 psychological study by Bueller, Griffin, and Ross. They wanted to figure out why people confidently believe their current project forecasts are realistic, even when they know for a fact that the vast majority of their similar past projects ran horribly late. So they studied university students, trying to predict when they'd finish their highly important honors theses.
The crucial takeaway here is just the massive, undeniable gap between prediction and reality. When asked for their absolute best estimate, students confidently predicted they'd finish their thesis in 33.9 days. How long did it actually take? 55.5 days. And here's the wild part. Even when the researchers asked them to make a worst-case scenario, highly pessimistic prediction, they still underestimated the time it would take. Psychologists call this phenomenon the planning fallacy. Basically, when we make plans, we adopt this overly optimistic, internal perspective. We construct a beautiful, perfect narrative of how the future is going to unfold smoothly without any hiccups, and we completely ignore our own distributional data, meaning our past failures. Why? Because we naturally write off past delays as external one-off flukes. Oh, I was late last time because I got sick. That won't happen this time. And this scales up to massive levels, too. The researchers point out that the Sydney Opera House was originally estimated back in 1957 to open in 1963 for about $7 million. It actually opened 10 years late and cost $102 million. We are biologically wired for overly optimistic planning.
All right, our final section, Section 5, how to reclaim your focus. Now that we know our environment is shattering our attention every 47 seconds, and our brains naturally underestimate the time we need anyway, how do we actually survive this cognitive crisis? First off, you really have to let yourself off the hook a bit. Relying on sheer willpower is a losing battle. As one of our sources perfectly notes, individual discipline cannot overcome systems explicitly engineered to capture attention. Think about it. When 76% of people respond to a notification within 5 minutes of getting it, the problem is environmental, not motivational. You have to change the information architecture around you. So here are the actual, actionable steps to design a better environment. Number 1, embrace monotasking sprints. Literally, block out 25 to 90 minutes of sustained focus on just one task. Number 2, environmental design. You must physically block out distractions. Tools like active noise-canceling headphones remove those auditory triggers, and some even use neuromodulation to prime your prefrontal cortex for deep focus. And number 3, frictionless capture. Because the gap between having a brilliant idea and losing it to a random distraction is so unbelievably narrow, you need tools to capture thoughts instantly. Voice-to-text AI apps let you record your thoughts in a single tap without app switching or typing, totally preventing that devastating 23-minute context switching penalty we talked about.
Because honestly, the future of productivity doesn't belong to the person who just tries really, really hard to resist distraction. It belongs to the person who designs workflows that make distraction entirely irrelevant. So I'm going to leave you with this final provocative thought. Will you take control and actively design your environment, or will you just sit back and let the environment design you? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I highly encourage you to start your very first monotasking sprint today. You've got this.